Good morning, and I welcome everybody to the May meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority. We do have a quorum. We're short a couple trustees today. Kay Bickham broke her arm, I understand, and Barney was on vacation, so we'll make do with the best of the rest. So, I don't have any particular items. Do we have any citizens to be heard? If not, I would have a motion to approve our minutes of our board meeting held April 6th.
Move approval.
All in favor? Aye. And then also we had a meeting yesterday of the Joint Transportation and Finance Committee meeting, and we've got a copy of the minutes were put in place, so I hope everybody's had a chance to review it. So I would have a motion to approve those minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Consent docket. We've got 6 items on there that really refer to about the same thing, and I asked Jason if he'd just briefly talk about those 6, and then we can approve the consent docket.
Yeah, these items that are on the consent docket are renewals with Community Action, Harris Senior Citizen Center, Daily Living Centers. These are typical annual renewals that the trustees have seen before. We do these renewals annually. These are our transportation partners and providers that help us provide the senior transportation services. So anyway, pretty standard items that we renew this time of year.
All right. Thank you. And then item G is approval of a parking agreement with the city for employees parking in the garages. So if there are no questions, I'd have a motion to approve our consent docket.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items on our individual consideration. Item A is an agreement with Token Transit for mobile ticketing and fare inspection. We had quite a educational and lengthy meeting yesterday to get a complete presentation on this. So a few of the trustees were involved in that meeting and heard that, but I'll let Jason make some brief comments if he'd like to.
Yeah, so again, we looked at the mobile ticketing and fare inspection technology that's proposed in this contract. Yesterday during the committee meeting, we had a pretty thorough presentation, so won't go into all of those details. But, just as a refresher, we've been working with 49's Technologies over the last year or so, and they are the consulting firm that's been assisting us with our fare study. Fare study meaning not only our fare structure, but also modernizing our fare collection mechanisms and so forth. And so as part of those recommendations from 49's, when we looked at modernizing our fare collection methodology, they had recommended mobile ticketing. And also, if mobile ticketing was implemented, to also consider using beacon technology to work alongside of that mobile ticketing. And so pleased to report that the contract that is up for consideration with Token Transit will allow us to move forward with not only mobile ticketing, but also that beacon technology add-on. And the significance of that beacon technology is really data. It's going to help us even better understand where our customers on all modes are boarding and alighting. So we're certainly looking forward to having that additional data. So again, just as a reminder, in November of 2017, the board had actually authorized an RFP for mobile ticketing. We received 5 responsive bids in total. The selection committee determined that there were 2 that they wanted to have personal interviews with. Those interviews were conducted on February 12th. And then Token Transit was selected as the winning proposer. So again, with approval of this item, we will enter into contract with Token Transit for mobile ticketing. Estimated cost is $43,800 annually, or $219,000 over the term of the 5-year contract.
All right. And as Jason said, this will take care of all our modes of transportation, the ferry and the streetcar and the buses. And after the presentation yesterday, it's for the younger generation, they're going to have a field day with this. For the rest of us, I need to buy just a pass if I can. Okay. All right, any questions?
Yes. Speaking on behalf of this younger generation, Jason, could you speak to some of the research you all did into the customer service responses to token? I hear that there's a lot of good word on the street.
Yes. So, yeah, that's one of the things that we were encouraged by. I mean, Token Transit has been responsive throughout the process, but in doing our due diligence and making reference checks, not only to references that were provided, but other systems that we knew were using Token Transit, the reviews we received were all very, very good. So, very optimistic about that relationship moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve item A?
Motion to approve. I move approval. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Item B is approve amendment number 1 and change order number 1 to the exterior renovations of the Sheridan Walker parking garage. And I think Corey's going to brief us on that, if you would.
Good morning. Yes. Amendment number 1 was affected the striping of the garage and the configuration of the garage, or the configuration of the parking spaces, the stenciling, the number of the parking spaces, and then adding some extra length to those parking stalls, again, to make the parking stalls more user-friendly for the customers. Change order number 1 included the removal of 2 lights that were omitted in the alleyway, a new breaker for the laundry room, or the storage room / laundry room. That ties into item E later in the meeting. And then painting of the epoxy. Some of the floor on the second floor was epoxied, so we couldn't remove the stripes, and we chose to paint over that to make, again, appearance. And then the last item is we had to cut some of the steel tubes in the elevator shafts that support the canopies in order to get them in there and mount them. With that, is there any questions?
Is this about the last items we had before the completion of the work?
Actually, today,
Today?
as of minutes ago, our public parking sign arrived. So I'd encourage everybody after the meeting to look south on Walker, and we'll see the installation. The work continues. We're in phase 2. So we're actually working on floors 5, 6, and 7.
Okay.
Corey, you might mention the additional days. Were we looking for the project to wrap up?
Yes, sorry. It's not involved in the change order, but weather has caused a 42-day extension at this point. Plain and simple, you can't paint when it's freezing out, is my understanding.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Any questions? Then I'd have a motion to approve item B.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Item C is an adopt a resolution to ratify the letters of interest for architect and engineering services for our parking garage that will be part of the convention center. And I served on that, and it's interesting, Corey talking about striping this parking garage, and the architects that designed these garages said, you know, it's a challenge because we don't know what a garage is going to be like in 10, 20, 30 years. There may not be any cars. Or you may come in on your drone and park. So he said it is a challenge to design a parking garage that's going to be usable in the next 20, 30 years. But the committee did select, and so it's authorized the administrator to enter into negotiations with the successful proposer.
Yep. And so just for a little additional background on the item, what staff is proposing the board approve is the negotiations with the winning proposer, which is TAP Architecture. Ratifying the actions to to advertise for letters of interest, authorizing negotiations for the winning proposer, and then in the event, we can't come to an agreement with the winning proposer, authorizing the administrator to enter into negotiations with the second top proposer. So those are the actions that we're actually requesting the board to take. And again, just adding some additional background again to the item. You'll notice in the description the location of the new multi-use public parking garage that Cotpa will be constructing is indicated to be in the vicinity of Shields Boulevard and Broadway in terms of east and west, and then between Southwest 4th and the new Oklahoma City Boulevard. So that's essentially it's basically that location just east of the Convention Center Hotel. And so this will be the garage. It will serve not only the Convention Center and the Convention Center Hotel, but also will provide parking for large events at the Scissortail Park. It's going to be an opportune park and ride location for the Oklahoma City streetcar, with the Scissortail Park stop being in very close proximity. We're also expecting this garage to provide parking for event goers at the Chesapeake Arena. And then just looking ahead and being proactive and having adequate parking for any additional future development that we expect in the Core to Shore area. This garage will be one of those primary anchor points for public parking. So again, we're managing this project to coincide with completion at the same time as the Convention Center, or in that close proximity at the same time. And this item here today will initiate that process of beginning to design and eventually construct that new garage.
And you did fail. I mean, the garage will serve the new Omni Hotel and the Convention Center. So, all right, any questions? And then I'd have a motion to approve item C. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item D is adopt a resolution approving service and fare changes as was presented in the April 6th public hearing. So you might briefly, we've all been through it and kind of know, but for public interest, what?
Yep, and so I will spare reading the entire title there and the supporting bullets, but you can see on your memo here, this resolution that is presented to the board is actually the formal action that is needed to put in place the fare changes and the service changes that really, again, we've been talking about over the last few months and that we had a public hearing on during April's meeting. And again, not going through all of them, but just as a summary, these are the changes we're making in terms of establishing the downtown circulator fare that will pertain to the Oklahoma City streetcar, as well as the downtown Discovery, the addition of Route 22 at night, the Universal Transit Pass, and again, you can see the other changes that are all proposed with approval of this item.
And would it be appropriate to mention Sunday service that was adopted by the council at this time, since we're talking about service changes?
Well, we are optimistic that the FY19 proposed budget the proposed budget includes funding for Sunday service. The budget, of course, hasn't been approved yet by council, but very optimistic about continuing to add service.
All right. Any questions on item D? Or excuse me, item D. If so, I'd have a motion to approve.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item E is a resolution for Cotpa to sell and convey to Oklahoma City Water Utility Trust a portion of the Sheraton Walker over here. Corey, if you just brief us on that briefly.
In the northwest corner of the garage on the first floor in the alleyway, or off of the alleyway, there's approximately 1,132 square feet that was used at one point as a laundry room. Cotpa has not utilized that room for a number of years, where we would like permission to sell that piece of property to the water department for $67,552.
All right.
Any questions?
And then we have sold the whole main floor of the building now. I mean, it is.
Correct. They could use this, they want to use this room for some technology and additional storage.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve item E?
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. Item F is approve agreement with Paralot, is that correct, Associates, for compliance assessment and support services?
So with approval of this item, we will be able to use the consulting services of the firm you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, to help us prepare for the next triennial review. As you'll recall, every 3 years we do participate in a triennial review where the FTA and their designee or consultant come in and really review our operations from start to finish, anywhere from our financial management capacity, our grant management, all the way to our maintenance records, what we're doing in terms of ADA compliance. It's that thorough review of all of our operations. And so, typically we do pretty well on those triennial reviews. Obviously, we continually want to do better. But with the selection of this consultant, what we're really looking to do here is get some technical assistance before or ahead of our next triennial review, which will occur this fall. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is we have had some staff changes in some of those key areas that the FTA typically looks at. And in addition, just through some research, we know some of the areas that across the country, agencies seem to have some difficulty with. And so we want to just be as prepared as we possibly can. And so by bringing in some outside assistance to help us in some targeted areas of the triennial review, we think we'll be better equipped this fall. I'm sorry, I'm just going to add that it's a 1-year contract, and you'll notice the estimated cost is just under $18,000 for the services.
I found that interesting I don't know sure what their whole scope of work is, but it seemed to be a very minimal fee to do what you're, saying that the scope of the work may be. So, all right. Do I have a motion to approve item F?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item G is approval to request for proposal for parking consultant services to perform a parking study for the Central Business District. And Corey and I'd asked Jason, I kind of thought we'd done this before, but he said it was for the core to shore and it really didn't involve the CBD. So,
Correct. It's been quite some time since the CBD's been looked at. What we're at, in the original scope of work, we asked for, on the east side of town, the border to be Oklahoma Avenue. We've updated that to I-35 being the east side.
I-235.
I'm sorry, 235. To the north, 13th Avenue, south 3rd, and west Clausen. We want the study to include future projects, other changes such as the possibility of the loss of VIP parking for the Thunder season pass holders, making the assumption that some of those surface lots would be developed in the next several years. The possibility of the relocation / loss of the Cox Center garage, and obviously holding into account the new streetcar circulator. We're also going to ask them to look at on-street and how to better encourage folks to utilize off-street for longer stays in an attempt to help us balance encourage the development of off-street and on-street via shared parking by both private and public, and then the use of technology. We're asking them to go many years in advance in the study. The total estimated cost is $150,000.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to add that so much has changed since the last time we did a parking study. It was really for the purpose of locating the garage that we eventually built as the Arts District garage across the street. Since that time, one of the spaces that we considered was the lot across from the Journal Record Building, which has since been converted into garage space. There are thousands of spaces that have been built just blocks away from us here, which weren't even contemplated at the time of that parking study. The first national proposal to convert into parking spaces, and so, and the addition of the streetcar, which at the time was just a dream at that point. So I think it's very important that we evaluate what the market is for parking downtown now, with all these developments that we are now quite sure are coming, whether it's the streetcar, the change of use of the Cox Center site, or even just the garage spaces that we know are available both publicly and privately in the proximity of our existing garages.
And I think you're right. One of the biggest is the possibility of what will happen to the Cox Center, parking. So,
for us, certainly.
yes.
And the hotel and convention center garage that we hadn't contemplated at the time that study was done either. We just voted today to approve the design of 850 new spaces that we really hadn't even thought about at the point that the last study was done.
We are also asking them to do a full rate analysis of every parking space.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Corey. I have a motion to approve item G. All in favor? We'll have a voice vote on item to enter into executive session, which we can do that at the end of our trust meeting. So we'll have a voice vote, Corey, to enter into executive session? Yes. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Next item is ratification of payroll and vendor claims. If there's no question concerning any of those, then I'd have a motion to ratify. All in favor? Opposed? Our financial report, schedule of revenue and expenditures, and budget to actual for the 9 months ended March 31st. Jason, any particular items you'd like to mention? And then
Just a few items this morning. I'll keep my comments pretty brief because really when you look at our operating revenues and our operating expenditures in terms of comparing what we've actually received or expended and comparing that to our budget, we've been pretty consistent throughout the year, percentage-wise. So again, I'll just hit a few of the highlights that I wanted to bring to your attention. So starting on page 2 on the transportation operations budget to actual, if you look at the operating revenue section, just direct your attention to the federal grant revenue. This was one that, we mentioned last month. Due to timing, we were actually $1 million, actually $1,044,000 and some change under budget. And again, it just had to do with the timing of our draws. Now you can see that we've kind of swung the pendulum the other way, and now we're $171,000 over what we had anticipated in terms of federal grant revenue. So again, that's just really a timing issue for us on the grant reimbursements. So with that, federal grants being kind of caught back up, so to speak, our total operating revenue is right within budget. I mean, we're basically just barely over what we had anticipated through March of this fiscal year. Looking at operating expenditures, a very similar situation as to what we had last month. Overall, we're less than 93% of what we had anticipated. I will direct your attention to the fuel line. You'll notice we actually show to be about $113,000 under budget through March, but just to let you know, we had over $90,000 of fuel expenditures that, again, due to timing, we incurred the expense in March, didn't actually pay until April, so that's just slightly overstated, but just letting you know that information. So when you look at our total operating income, again, through March of 2018, our revenues exceed our expenditures by 1.9 million. Moving on to page 3, this is our budget to actual for parking operations. Again, just direct your attention to total operating revenues, basically 223,000 more than what we had anticipated, so pretty much right on budget. Looking at operating expenditures, you'll notice operating expenditures are about 190,000 under budget. So again, pretty much right within what we had estimated. Operating income line there, our total revenues exceed our expenditures by over $3 million through 9 months of the fiscal year. And as I've mentioned previously, that does include our debt service, of course.
Jason, curious, so we're on event revenue, but I heard Corey make mention in a meeting that April numbers weren't in on events, but it looked pretty good. Do you have any preliminary numbers?
I'm sorry?
For event for April?
Oh, for April?
With the Arts Festival and all that.
Yeah.
Corey seemed to think it was going to be
You want to make a comment on that?
So, because we're way under on event revenue, but.
The Arts Festival did have a pretty significant increase over last year as far as what we saw in parking. Memorial Day Marathon, again, these are unaudited numbers, but we right around 4,000 vehicles parked in our garages alone for that event. So it was a big day for us. We all started at 5, I think it was at 4 a.m. Staff was on site assisting the customers. So they really showed their true colors out there.
It'll look better next month. Okay, all right, thank you.
Real quick, Corey, sorry. Hey, good to see you again. I know that those numbers are unaudited, but I'm very excited about them because I noticed that when I was down here, and I was here every day that weekend and throughout the week, I saw more people walking around, not just around the Arts Festival, but all the way over to Sheridan, all the way over here to Hudson. I mean, it was amazing seeing the amount of people walking on the sidewalks, the new crosswalk over here at Hudson and Main. I hadn't seen anything like it, and I'm always down here during that Arts Festival, so I'm kind of curious what happened. I know that's not something you're going to be able to speak to quite yet, but I just wanted to...
It was very, very, very busy. I'm just very reluctant to comment on unaudited numbers, but it was definitely, we were busy. We were running all week long.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next page, page 4 is our River Cruises operations budget to actual. Again, just direct your attention to total operating revenues. We're at about 15,000 more than what we had anticipated. But again, if you look at basically the top 4 lines of revenue there, each one of those revenue categories that's really tied to our service is under budget, and it's being offset by the payment from the Oklahoma City riverfront redevelopment. So that's offsetting that payment that we did not budget is offsetting some of those losses we see on the revenue side. But again, this is through March, so we really weren't operating service in March. So it'll be interesting, of course, to see how April and May and June do in terms of finishing out on revenues. And then on operating expenditures, if you look at total operating expenditures, we're about 11,000 over budget. When you combine the revenues and the expenditures, our total operating income is 163,000 through 9 months of the fiscal year. And again, I've mentioned this before, but we draw that entire general fund, or we've drawn the entire general fund subsidy, so that overage you see of revenues in excess of expenditures will decline as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. And then just finishing up on Spokey's, looking at operating revenues, very positive revenues there on that first line, the bike share revenues. Notice we're $10,000 over budget, which is about 44% more than what we had anticipated. And it's really just due to more usage of the system. So the new bikes and what Jeannie and Josh do in terms of marketing are really paying off in terms of additional trips. Looking at operating expenditures, we're actually $3,800 over on what we had anticipated. Again, when you look at revenues and expenditures combined, our operating income is $39,216 through 9 months of the fiscal year. So I'll be glad to answer any questions, any other questions you might have on the financials.
Any questions? All right, then I'd have a motion to receive our financial reports.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We have 3 program system reports today. The first is our transit system report.
Mr. Chairman, trustees, good morning. Thanks for having us. I'd like to thank Corey. He made it easier to find the podium this morning. I just followed the path on the carpet that he's worn. We were responsible, safety, I'm going to touch on 4 topics, of course, safety, ridership, on-time performance, and how we measure up to our fiscal year-to-date report card. We were responsible for 7 preventable accidents during the month of March. 5 of those were low dollar, which had a total value or total non-value of $1,725. We had a $5,500 accident when a new operator who has learned a very valuable lesson encountered a clearance pole and damaged the top of the bus. Our other important preventable accident was when an experienced driver cut a corner too sharply and encountered a pole for $1,070. We had 3 non-preventable accidents during the month. One was $0. One was $4,585 when, let's see, oh yeah, that was a bad one. That was when a hit-and-run guy got us on the side, sideswiped and took off. And one was $410, which is another example, by the way, when you hear what happened here, it's another example of how much our operators go through on a daily basis. In this case, a wonderful operator was stopped completely before, according to federal law, before crossing a railroad track, and some, I think I could call, horrible person threw a bottle and cracked the windshield of the bus. So that was a non-preventable accident. But once again, some insight. And I mean, our operators, think about this. They got 60 people on the bus, going up and down. We've got all of these detours. We've got all of these laws that, you and I don't even know about, some of them, in terms of they have to adhere to every single municipal law. These guys have a hard time. My hat's off to them. Ridership. If you please take a look at the slide, you'll see that our ridership Monday through Friday was 10,280, which is 6.5% less than the 10,965. Now, major rides per day. Now, a major contributor to that was the fact that we had 6 bad weather days during March, and that represents 22% of our service days were bad weather. And as you all know, and all our operators and everybody know, on-time performance is absolutely not even paid attention to when in front of safety. So it is not the on-time performance that tells our people how to operate the buses. It is to be safe and then do your best for on-time performance. The new night service slide, you'll see that we had 389 trips per night on an average compared to 405 trips last March, in March 2017. Now that's a 4% drop, but it also has to do with that bad weather. But it is a remarkable increase because it was 26% up from the prior month. In fact, routes 23 and 11 were up 34% on an average. The other routes were up 20%. And while I'm on this topic, it's just so wonderful. I've only been here for 3 years, and the marvelous things that have happened, and one of them is the night service itself, but now the addition of Route 22. I mean, that's huge for those people and for our and then secondly, and I'll just briefly touch on it, but to have Sunday service, that's absolutely historic. And Trustee Cooper's letter to the editor was, it kind of tells the story there, but I know a lot of these guys, and they work 6 days a week, and Sunday is their only time to go to the store, to go to church, to go to places. I mean, these are hardworking guys that ride our buses, and as you know, 73% of our passengers don't have a motorized vehicle at home. So Sunday's just huge. My hat's off to the city and to you guys. Fantastic. On-time performance. You'll see that our on-time performance dropped from 68.14% to 66.13%, which is a 4% drop. And again, it has to do with the 22% of our days being bad weather days. So that's where we are with that. Let's see, our year-to-date report card, fiscal year-to-date report card, and I'll just run through the percentages. The number of passenger hours, or number of passengers per service hour is 93%. Number of passengers per operating day in the fixed route is 85%. On-time bus arrivals is 89% of goal. Number of miles driven between road calls for fixed route is 89%. Number of vehicle accidents is 154%. And the number of passenger claims per 100,000 miles is 121%. I'd be very happy to answer if any questions anyone has.
All right, any questions?
Okay, thanks so much for the Sunday service and for that extra route at night. It's just wonderful. Thank you.
Streetcar report. Jesse?
Morning. Morning to the
Once
board.
you're up and running, what are you going to do for reports?
I'll just take a bunch of pretty pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So we just wrapped up month 4 of the year of streetcar. I don't know about you all, but seems like this year is flying by. So we continue developing our SOPs. We're getting close to wrapping up all of them. There's a few out there that we won't be able to wrap up until we get some of the construction wrapped up. Toward the end of the construction, that's when you start getting your operator and manuals, for like your substations, those types of things. So we'll have to wait until we get some of those manuals before we can wrap up all of our SOPs, but we hope to have majority of them wrapped up this month. But you can see here from the graph, we're still continuing to make progress.
And I appreciate you putting in there. Do you have a similar for construction and a similar graph like this for how far along we are on the track completion? And
I've got that map that I usually show with percentages. I can include that every time.
yeah, if you would, please.
Okay, yeah, you bet. So we continue to, wow, the picture's really dark, sorry. We continue to wrap up or work on our safety and security plans. We continue to hold our monthly committees, our rail activation committee, fire and life safety committees, and our safety and security committees. Eugene's been really, really busy keeping those committees going, our safety and training manager. We continue to do our systems integrated testing in our committees, holding those committees also. We're also involved in the integrated testing for car number 1, getting that toward a substantial completion, and then the integrated testing on Hudson NRT and the storage and maintenance facility. We just wrapped up Herzog's 10 hours of stick time, seat time out on the NRT. Norm Jester, one of the VPs at Herzog, he also came in to get his seat time in, so that he's also a certified operator through Brookville. We're also working on getting our first tabletop exercise, or emergency tabletop exercise. We're hoping to do that sometime in the June, July timeframe, and then we'll also have a field emergency exercise also. And then big news there at the bottom, ODOT passed their legislation on April 5th that allows them to legally have their state safety oversight and help us get set up and start running revenue service. It goes into effect July 1st of 2018.
That July 1st effective date isn't having any impact on your implementation, is it? I mean,
No.
they're pretty much engaged.
They are.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. So also a big thing happened last week, actually. We held one of our first TSI classes in Oklahoma. So kind of interesting thing here, the TSI federally funded function is actually housed here in Oklahoma, but they have all of their classes in other places, such as Sacramento and D.C., some of the places that Jason and I went last summer. We had one of our first ones here in Oklahoma. We had nearly everyone from Embark and then also Herzog there to take the SMS principles for training. So what the SMS is a new federally regulated procedure that goes into place, puts a lot of pressure on Jason, being our administrator, to make sure that, we, from the top down, we are maintaining safety as one of our top priorities. And this is just an additional class that we all attended. So, also, April 23rd, we released our first cyclist safety campaign. Over the past several months, Michael and his team have been working really hard with local cyclist community and then also other peer streetcar systems to get their input on our safety video. And I have the pleasure of showing it to you.
The OKC streetcar shares the street with cyclists. So when biking, don't get stuck. Slim wheels, such as bike tires, can get caught in the tracks, so it's best to use marked bike lanes. Know the signs and look for markings so you can avoid tracks in your path. When you do encounter them, look first. Always cross tracks at a 90-degree angle. And, as always, keep an eye out for oncoming vehicles.
So as you can tell, there was one that was actually modeled after me there at the end. So we're very, very excited about this, and then you'll start seeing other videos roll out here in the future. We've got pedestrian safety, and then also how to maneuver your vehicle and how to park around the streetcar system, and also how to ride, those types of things. Yep. Encore. So construction continues. Our construction completion dates are holding. We've got completion of the Bricktown Loop around May of 2018, toward the end of this month. I'll show a graph here in just a second that kind of shows just how close we are to wrapping that up. We did start getting our station pylons installed. We're wrapping those with plastic to keep them safe. As they're starting to wire those up, they'll have TV monitors installed and get the lighting installed. So we had the pleasure of seeing them lit up, and they're pretty incredible. They're very, very pretty. And then the downtown loop, the construction continues there. We've got substantial completion of the downtown loop in October, and then final completion of all work in November of 2018. So this is what I wanted to show you. So obviously work continues. We're 99% complete with utilities. That's a big milestone there. Once we're out of the ground, things move a little faster. Track demo, 77% complete, and track installation about 70% complete. We're getting close to wrapping up our OCS foundations, 89% complete. 13 of 22 stops, station stops are installed. All of our traction power substations are installed and ready to be powered up, and then we've got 34% of our contact wire. So draw your attention to the map just to kind of give you an idea of how close we are to getting complete. On the map, all the areas that are blue, those are where the utilities are complete, and that's actually the only areas where we have track installation left to start. So 11th Street, south of 4th Street on Robinson, and then 4th Street and making that turn there on Broadway. So saying that, obviously there's still construction that's ongoing right now as far as track demo and track installation, but we're getting dangerously close to wrapping up. And again, this map is from March 30th. Just want to make sure I draw your attention to that. We get a monthly update from the Herzog-Stacy group, and they're about 3 weeks behind, so 3 weeks into May, we'll get April's update. So, but we'll continue to update you. Vehicle procurement. So again, the 3 cars are delivered. Vehicle number 4, we were hoping to get that a couple weeks ago. They're got some testing that's left to do, and we're hoping to receive that here in May. And also vehicle number 5 and vehicle number 6 in May. And then vehicle number 7 comes later this year. Vehicle number 1, commissioning and testing. So we're getting close to wrapping that up. We're still running the car up and down Hudson, wrapping up that testing. Also, vehicle number 2, same thing. We're getting close to wrapping up and accepting vehicle number 2. And vehicle number 3, we're also doing commissioning there, doing the static and dynamic testing. Any questions?
No. We're making progress.
We are, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our last is Special Services Report.
Morning.
Morning.
Great to see everyone. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time to give you an update. Before we get started, I want to make sure that everybody knows the ridership numbers I'm going to be quoting to you are through March. I haven't quite finished April's numbers yet. For our senior transportation, we're just over 33,000 trips. As a reminder, these are Older Americans Act funding, and through the partnership with the Area-Wide Aging Agency. We just received information last week that the grant has been extended for another year, and we completed our annual financial assessment and had no findings. So we're very proud of that. Outreach is continuing. I set a staff goal. The two ladies that you see here with me in the photo, Valentina Van Kuren, Becky Nolan, I gave them a goal of 1 outreach event per month. They've up to 21 so far. And their efforts have led to the first increase we've seen in a while in our senior transportation. We're nearly 1,400 trips over last year. So they have been doing a wonderful job. Our next event is going to be the Senior Living Fair with the Salvation Army. Back in March, we did the Disability Awareness Day at the state capitol. And we are wrapping up our outreach with the Oklahoma City Police Department patrol officers so that I have information on our senior services should they do a welfare check or encounter someone they feel like would benefit from the services. As a reminder, the homeless and low income is funded through CDGB money in a partnership with the Planning Department. These are the first 9 months of the fiscal year, nearly 30,000 bus passes, 440 emergency taxi rides, and as a reminder, those are the type of rides that we coordinate through social service agencies. For example, the YMCA Battered Women's Shelter, if they have a woman they need to transport out of a dangerous situation, they have the authorization and a special taxi code so they can schedule that taxi ride 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if needed. So far in Oklahoma City, we have sold over 5,500 Sheriff Air coupon booklets, and that is just Oklahoma City. And as a reminder, Bethany, War Acres, other area cities participate in that program too, but this number is just the booklets served for Oklahoma City residents. In Embark Plus, we did some updates to the zones several months ago. This has gone very smoothly. Implementation is going great. Have received nothing but positive comments from our customers. They are enjoying the service as always. We didn't have any problems with our software implementation and the change. It's gone very well, and I'm very proud of staff for that. This is our Embark Plus ridership, and I apologize, but somehow or another my bars got switched backwards, so your current year is actually the blue bar, and prior year is the red bar instead of the other way around. Not quite to 40,000 trips. That is a decline from last year. Not really sure why that is. Plus, it's a little bit of an odd duck as far as trying to figure out ridership trends. Sometimes it trends with the weather, as you can see the drops in December. Sometimes it doesn't. We had weather in March, but it didn't drop as much as we expected it to. So, and then of course your change year over year comparing the month is the green bar with the percentages at the top. We did have some pretty significant declines in December and January. We feel like that's probably a lot to do with the flu season that we've had and the extremely cold weather. Our riders are very weather aware, and they will cancel their rides if they feel like it's going to be too cold, if it's icy, or if we hear from the news media that we're about to have a tornado event. This is the slide that I'm very, very excited to show you. One of our prime key measures in Embark Plus is on-time pickups. Not quite the same thing as on-time performance in fixed route, because we measure it based on the time that we've negotiated their pickup, whether we get there within the pickup window, which is 15 minutes before or after that negotiated scheduled time. As you can see, back in March and April of last year, which is the green bar, we noticed that despite our best efforts, what we were doing was not working. We were not even close to our target of 92.5%, so we looked at some different ways we could do that and work on it. We started implementing those in May, and you can see that jump in May, jumped even more in June of last year, and I'm really pleased to let you know that the team has managed to meet their target for the first 9 months of this fiscal year. They haven't been at or above target every month. on their on-time pickups. And this just goes to reinforce what we all already know about the Leading the Results program, is if you communicate those numbers to your frontline employees that are responsible for those numbers at the end of the day, and let them know how they're doing, explain how their actions impact that number, that you can see a significant improvement just because they have the information they need to do the best job possible. So I am very, very proud of our schedulers and our operators for pulling this feed off, and obviously I'm going to have to update my target now.
Are these contract operators?
No, these are remote operators. And of course, there's always the extra board operators, which, as you know, are signed off as just an extra pool of people that cover vacations, time off for sick, and things like that. So they've done just as well as our regularly assigned plus operators, because we do track it by operator group, and they are definitely helping us with that as well. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, any items from any of the trustees?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this past week, the finance department came out to the streetcar facility, and Jason helped to organize this. Jesse took us on a tour, showed everyone the streetcar, and then did a presentation for us. And I just want to really express our appreciation for them doing that. And then Melissa and Michael helped us get everything coordinated at Union Station, had our meeting there, and I do appreciate them taking the time to do that for us. Thank you.
Oh, Jason, any more? All right, then I guess we'll retire to executive session. right, we're adjourned.